my dreams end up in my work. It just never ends. It's just a constant thing. Every conversation that I have, every like interaction becomes like something that is part of a pattern that I'm analyzing and that I'm seeing how it weaves into some kind of web that will end up inevitably in something. Hi, I'm Madeleine Ryan, and my book, The Knowing, is out now through Scribe. At its core, it's kind of a book about what it means to fulfill our potential and the kind of obstacles and doubts and risks we undertake in the process of trying to be all that we can be. That's like the heart of the book for me and what I kind of uncovered writing it. But then at a more, it's not surface level, but I guess at the level of the story, it's essentially about a girl who is on her way to work and she realizes that she's forgotten her phone. And that's kind of the catalyst for her then being more confronted with the realities of her day, which is a high pressure day. It's Valentine's Day. She works at a floral designing business in the city and she's traveling from the country to the city. So she's got a long train ride and now a long commute without a phone. And then she has to get to work and face her toxic boss and herself. She's got period pain. She's dealing with all kinds of drama. She's got a boyfriend at home waiting for her and her own hopes and dreams that kind of become a huge part of the day when she can't distract herself from them. So yeah, that's the story. And then that came from, in a way, a day when I was traveling into the city from the country where I live and I forgot my phone. And I kind of got to the train and by some miracle, I had a notepad and pen in my bag, which I don't carry anymore. And I don't know how I had it. This was back in like 2020. And I managed to write the first few chapters of the book while I was on the train. So it was like, okay, well, obviously forgetting the phone is a powerful thing and powerful things can happen. So that's kind of where the story came from and what it is about to me. It's probably going to sound a bit narcissistic, but in a way I write for myself. And I think that there can be a universality in going deeply into the individual and going into problems and struggles and desires and illuminating them. I think you kind of can tap into a universality. So I'd like to think that you can. So I suppose I'm writing what I would like to read and what I would like to see, and then hoping that that will resonate at a kind of broader human level. If I can really like face stuff that I don't want to face or whatever, that'll speak to other hearts grappling with the same thing. My first book, A Room Called Earth, came out in 2021, I think. Yeah, and they're different, but there are similarities too, for sure. A Room Called Earth was set in Melbourne on Christmas Eve, and it's about this kind of magical young woman who decides to go out to this big party, and it's her night meeting all these different people and kind of developing a connection with this special guy and then bringing him back to where she lives, and she's kind of living in an unusual situation for a woman in her 20s, but it's kind of got a secret garden-like quality where she's coming from. So, yeah, she's a very kind of philosophical, sensual specimen, whereas Camille in The Knowing is philosophical and sensual, but she's dealing with the daily grind in this kind of intense way, whereas in A Room Called Earth, it's a bit more like mythical or something. But they're both set over short periods of time. Like The Knowing, I would say, set over like 12 hours, whereas A Room Called Earth is maybe 24. So I'm into those compressed amounts of time. I'm basically writing 24/7, as in it just never stops. Like, yeah, but yes, that's my main thing. I exercise a lot. I like to eat well. I love beautiful smelling candles and perfume and making things into a ritual. And I definitely make writing into a ritual. I'll always light a candle or something. But doing exercise first is a big thing, like getting a kind of having an outlet before I can channel that mental energy is really important, I find. But yeah, it's a real mix of the physical and the mental and the spiritual for me, the process of writing. But I also, like, my dreams end up in my work. It just never ends. It's just a constant thing. Every conversation that I have, every like interaction becomes like something that I is part of a pattern that I'm analyzing and that I'm seeing how it weaves into some kind of web that will end up inevitably in something. So it just never stops. Yeah. Are you a Monopoly or Scrabble person? I've become a Monopoly person. I grew up playing Scrabble. My parents are both journalists. I grew up in a real Scrabble household. But as the years have gone by, like when I was like, I must have been 12, I became really good friends with a girl from school, and we would have these marathon Monopoly games where we'd be in our pajamas like all day, and we would hide the money around the house and like pretend we didn't have as much as we actually had. And it just became this like glorious kind of capitalist, like crazed thing that we would just enjoy. And I think ever since I've been a Monopoly person. To elevate and value the human experience, I think kind of more than ever before with the way technology and society moves and how fast it moves, I think to really look at, celebrate, honor, and value the miracle that is human life and the human mind and heart. That is the writer's role now on like a whole. I mean, it's always been the writer's role. It's almost, we just need to become more aware and appreciative of the fact that that's what the writer's role is. I grew up reading a lot of like classical literature and fiction, which I loved. And then at a certain point in my 20s, I kind of had to stop and I started reading more philosophy, psychology, self-help, spiritual stuff. I think it was because I was kind of switching gears and trying to find myself or start to hear what my own thoughts and feelings were and how they were supposed to come out. Um, so I stopped reading fiction. And now I've kind of even stopped reading the self-help stuff. And there's been a bit of like biography, nonfiction, but I'm pretty like selective and strange in what I read. I've been reading lately Faust. I've been like making my way through that, which has been amazing and epic. And then what else? Like, I really want to get a copy of the Bible and properly read the Bible, some of the oldest stories. I feel like I need to get into that. So yeah, I have sort of strange leanings, but I think it's because I'm trying to hear myself think a lot of the time. I think Oscar Wilde is my probably my biggest influence in that way because his ability to mix, I guess, philosophy with something hugely flamboyant and funny and beautiful and the celebration of beauty and sorrow just opened everything up for me. And starting to read first his short stories when I was young, but then getting into his like critical essays and his plays as I got older. It kind of opened up ideas about what was possible in storytelling and how fun and how fabulous it could be whilst also making a critique. Yeah, that really resonated with me and has stayed with me since, I think. I wrote a lot of picture books, inspired by inspired by Disney most of the time. But I remember drawing and writing a story about me and Flounder. You know how the Little Mermaid has Flounder? It was about me and Flounder and our day. And it's like it had pictures of me as a mermaid and Flounder and all the different activities we did. And I like stapled it together and did a little picture on each page. I still have it, actually. Well, I should say my parents still have it. And it's very gorgeous. Well, next, I've got my third book coming out next year. Uh, the Knowing took me 4 years to write. My first book, A Room Called Earth, took 2 years. And then my third book took a month, which was bizarre and amazing, and without any amphetamines or anything. I just ate a lot of dark chocolate and did a lot of exercise, and out it came. And just, it was just like cooked. It was one of those fantastic experiences that you kind of read about in the mythology of writers, of like, it took him 3 weeks. I mean, they're often on drugs, but I wasn't. But it did. It just took a month, and it was really crazy and fun. But that'll be coming out next year, and it's a bit different from my first two. It's set over a year, so it still has a kind of, the seasons are like a chronology, but it's a little bit more mainstream. And yeah, so that'll be interesting. That's called Love, Honor, and Obey. So that's coming out. And then I'm also working on different screen projects, like adaptations of my books, but then other sort of stuff. But that takes so much time. So yeah, we'll see when that all comes together. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been great.